G'day, it's Michael here from Fishy McFishface, and we're going to look at snorkeling at Port Hacking in New South Wales, Australia. So this is a picture here from Port Hacking, and this is the sort of wildlife you can expect to see in the Port Hacking area. So let's have a look. If I play Google Maps here, and I'm actually going to search Bundeena, that's probably the best suburb to search for when you're looking for Port Hacking, because so here we go, we've got Australia. So we're in Australia, we'll zoom in New South Wales, going a little bit further, and just south of the Sydney CBD, Bundeena is this suburb here. And then we'll just stretch out and zoom a bit, and this is the Port Hacking river or bay area. So you can see here it goes a fair way in. There's a lot of water mass, and I've actually got relatives who live in this area, Bundeena and Cronulla. So it's a real favourite spot of mine to go snorkeling when I visit them. But this whole area here in the bay is quite nice. So this is where it is, and you can see lots of houses and places to stay at. So great for accessibility too. Let's have a look at weather conditions. So first of all, the map. I'm going to look at 5 spots today, and these are spots that I've snorkeled at recently, and I think are fantastic. And there's some good reviews about them online as well. So first spot is so if you take the ferry from Cronulla, so there's a ferry over here at Cronulla, and you'll take that ferry and that'll go all the way across to Bundeena. It's not very expensive. I think it might be like $10 or something. And then you can walk along. This is Jibbon Beach, and this is Gunyah Beach area here, and there's another beach here. All these areas have rocky areas with lots of fish habitat. So you can go snorkeling all along here. Snorkeling in here. They're 2 good spots I'll talk about. On the mainland area, not the mainland, it's all the mainland, but the area closer to the city or built-up suburbia, we've got Salmon Hall. This is the area here, Salmon Hall, and Oak Park here. There's a little public ocean pool, and then Oak Park's actually got quite deep, large, bouldery areas to snorkel, so it's also good for scuba diving from what I've heard. There we've got this is the little bathing nets area. So this is netted off for people who are, maybe really concerned about sharks. There's sharks anywhere you go, but they'll rarely go for you. But if you're really concerned, there's actually a swimming netted area, and there are some fish in there too. So I'll go through all those, but let's have a look at the weather. In terms of rain, the water clarity is pretty good here, and I haven't snorkeled here in times where there's been a lot of rain, so I'm not entirely sure. But because it's such a large water system, what we normally find is when you've got a large water system, when you've got tides coming in and out, it usually takes a lot of rain, a lot of runoff for that water to get dirty and mucky. So because the snorkeling spots here are so close to the open ocean, and it's such a wide area, your water visibility is going to be pretty good even if there's rain. So not a huge issue, but if you've got floods recently, then of course it's probably going to be murky for a number of weeks. It'll take longer to clean out, but yeah, so not too much of an issue. Tide, for some of these places, ideally high tide I think is best for a lot of these places, but I've been at low tide near Bundeena and some of these spots, and they're fine. So the only thing that I think is an issue is the netted area here. The water quality is pretty good everywhere, but in here you've got a lot of people living on their boats. There's a lot of suburban runoff and rubbish sort of. It's not too bad, but the water quality tests on their website for this area sometimes aren't the greatest here. So if you're a little bit concerned about getting sick from being in dirty water, maybe just go swimming here at high tide when you've got a little bit more of that ocean water in here rather than low tide where it's mostly the stagnant sort of water. So that's something to keep in mind. But I think these parts, the tide's not so bad. Just pick the low or the high. If you pick in between, you might get a little bit of current. But yeah, it's not too bad. Swell's your biggest issue, I think, here. So you can see we've got open ocean here, and just this coastline here, that's waves coming straight from the open ocean. So in this area, you often get waves coming from the south, wrapping around the south of Australia, licking up the coast. And big southerly waves in autumn and winter, and in summer you'll get easterly waves and sometimes northeast waves if there's a bit of residue left from a cyclone up north, up in Queensland. So yeah, you really want to be, even if the swell is southerly in direction, if it's over about 3 or 4, 3 foot, 4 foot, that might be enough to actually reflect in, and you get a bit of surge happening, especially in the red and green areas. So swell really does affect the Oak Park and Jibbon Beach areas. But the good thing is you got options, and the Salmon Hall area is slightly less affected from the swell, and the Gunyah Beach area is also less affected, and of course the Gunamatta Bay swimming baths are very much not affected by swell. So you've got options. Um, if you've got, so I found the water visibility difference made a big difference with swell. So this was when there wasn't much swell, and this is outside of near Jibbon Beach rocks, and then same sort of area, and there's a bit of swell. You can see it's not dirty murky, but it's just more stuff churned up, more bits of algae and seaweed churned up in the water. You just don't see as far. So that's the sort of difference you'd expect in water visibility when you've got a bit of swell around. Wind is another big factor, so it's just pleasant on the water if you don't have wind, and wind can make it a bit murky too. Really what you want is, again, you've got choices, southerly winds, anything Jibbon Beach or Gunyah Beach, Bundeena or Jibbon, is fantastic if you've got southerly winds, because the headland is protecting that. If you've got northerly winds, then you can pick Salmon Hall. That's fantastic. It's protected from the headland here. Oak Park, westerly winds or no wind. You need good conditions for that, but it's fairly deep, so shouldn't affect your visibility too much. And yeah, again, the nets aren't too bad. Very protected. And the temperature is another issue here. So I'm used to Brisbane, or parts near Brisbane, like the Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast, where it doesn't get down, past 20 degrees Celsius even in winter. But that's probably the water temperature you get normally in summer in down far New South Wales. So it would be worth having a wetsuit. I used a spring suit in late summer when I went snorkeling here, and I got cold after about an hour in the water when I went snorkeling. So spring suit would be okay in summer, but really you want a steamer, a full length wetsuit for winter if you're going to go snorkeling in these areas. It would be pretty cold. So yeah, but a fantastic place to go snorkeling. All right, so I'm going to go through each of the locations and tell you about the different fish species that you can see. And the species that you'll see in these areas are all fairly similar, and they're not like coral, subtropical, tropical fish species with lots of colours. There are some that are colourful. Most of them are kind of green and brown and silver, which makes sense. They blend in with their environment, which is a lot of kelp, rocks and seaweed, things like that. So let's have a look. We're going to have a look at Jibbon Beach first. And that's this whole area here. So it's a short walk from the ferry to get here. And you've got this headland here, and snorkeling's okay there. I've been there before. This is all just beach. You'll probably see fish and stingrays along the beach if you want. But just here, it's like a little shore break here. Rocks here and rocks around here. Just around here, you'll see lots of fish and lots of fish in here. This is the best spot, I think. So let's have a look at what you'll find in there. So in this spot here, you'll see herring kale, and this one's the male is black with these bright blue stripes in its tail. They're pretty cool. You'll see these in the seaweedy area patch over here probably, and the female ones are like a speckled brown. Lots of bait fish. If you're lucky, you'll see an octopus. I found an octopus under this rock here. I think guarding its nest. I think it might have had some eggs. So it's probably going to stay there until it dies. That's what the females do. I've seen a blue groper in this area here a few times, and usually the blue gropers will stay in one area for years and years and years. So most of these snorkeling spots I'm showing you, I've seen the blue groper at, multiple times, and it's the same one. So there's usually one blue groper, that's the male, and then there's like heaps of female blue groper, the little green ones. So yeah, you'll see plenty of them around, and if you're lucky, the big male. They're sometimes curious, so they might come up to you. Um, See some of these, I think they're a moon jelly. Um, I don't think they sting very much, but if you've got a wetsuit on, you should be fine. Yeah, lots of luderick. If you want to go fishing, there's spots out here that you can go fishing on this rock. Lots of luderick. 3-bar porcupine fish, red morwong. They're something that I don't see in Queensland and I only see in New South Wales, so they're pretty cool to see. They're very curious too, and they'll come right up close to you. Um, Rock kale. They'll be sitting in rocks and seaweed patches until you get real close. Silver biddies, mado. I think that's a sweep fish. You get schools of them. Garfish. This is a senator wrasse, and I've only seen these in New South Wales, and they're spectacular. They're like a bright green with red stripes and blue. Very spectacular colours as far as the fish go down here. This is a razor fish, and in one of my shorts videos, you'll actually see the footage I got. They can actually swim through sand. So when you get close to them, they just swim into the sand as if it's water. They're pretty cool, so keep an eye out for them. I've seen a few moon wrasse, so blue and green and yellow ones. Not a lot of them, but I've seen a few. You get a lot more in Queensland. That's the female blue groper. You can see it's got that more green colour to it. And yeah, you often get these nice. I think part of the attraction of snorkeling in these areas is there's a lot of good fish, but the sponges, seaweed, kelp gardens, there's sort of like these sea tulip things, these orange, they look like flowers underwater. A lot of that's spectacular. Take your time to really enjoy being in the water in that habitat. Brown spotted wrasse, I think, is what they're called. Lots of goatfish, black spot goatfish, and pastel green wrasse. Often seen in schools with them, I think. You get the striped catfish, see them all over the place. And I saw this, I didn't get good footage of it, but there are shovel-nosed sharks around too. So keep an eye out for them, but it's always a good find. And I don't think they attack you, so they're pretty docile. Moving on to Gunyah Beach. I'm going to cover this whole area here. So we've got this portion here. So that's right on the edge of the extent that I went to from where I went from Jibbon Beach. But around the corner, there's like a little walkway down here that you can get down here, or you can walk around. This is the jetty the ferry comes to. There's also this seaweed patch here. I haven't looked at this one before, but this one's fantastic if you want to look through the seaweed and kelp. And then this area here, do be careful with the ferry because it comes I think about every hour or half hour. So just be careful when the ferry comes, but around the jetty and there's rocks around here, you can snorkel too. So what you'll find in this area here in the sand, about halfway out, I found a car tyre and a gloomy octopus made that its home. So I've got plenty of good footage of that, interacting with it. They'll often stay right where they are and they'll change colours and textures and, they'll interact with things that you put, like a shell that you drop near them. They might get their suckers on it. Very cool to see the octopus. Near the jetty, you'll see lots of yellowfin brim, yellowtail scad. You'll see moon jellies, garfish. I saw a little juvenile squid in this area. So this is all near the jetty. Flathead. Now moving around, these are fish that I saw at this spot here, which is the eastern extent. And you've got more of those brown spotted wrasse, sergeant fish, common stingerees. We've got whiting, goatfish, southern pygmy leather jackets. They're these little ones. You get quite a lot of them down in New South Wales. Leather jackets, porcupine fish. I saw actually, now moving to the seaweed area, massive schools of toadfish. So you can actually swim. Wouldn't be great for a fisherman because they're not great to catch on a fishing rod, but it's cool to swim with them, and you're just surrounded in these giant schools of toadfish. Massive schools of striped catfish. They're pretty spectacular to see. Sweep estuary cobbler. It's like a big catfish eel looking thing, and you'll see them around the seaweed areas. Gunther's wrasse, red morwong, all these sorts of fish you'll see in these kelp gardens. So I think my favourite spot was probably these kelp gardens for this area because you really get to explore underneath the kelp, and especially with the sun coming through, it's quite spectacular. Rock kale, in the kelp gardens, I saw lots of these old wife fish. So that's what they're called. Old wife is the species. Um, and they're everywhere in here. If you look under ledges and under little rocks under the kelp, you'll find them. Crimson band wrasse, I think they're called. They're spectacular undersea in Sydney. And red bait crabs, sponges, anemones, I'm not quite sure how to say it, near the jetty. And you get these little red, orange sea tulips as well. So lots of wildlife and lots of different habitat to look at as well. Here's another female blue grouper, baitfish, and the octopus. Now, I saw lots of these octopus at this area here. I saw about two or three of them in this little area here. So there's a little rocky stretch here with a pipe and a few rocks around here. A lot of these octopus apparently will have one area which they'll kind of make their home in their little nest. So I saw two within a couple of meters, and they were very interactive and changing colors and textures and moving around, and lots of fun to dive with them. So have a look for some octopus when you're there. Also a few surgeonfish. Cool. So we'll move on to Salmon Hall. And Salmon Hall's this area here. It's the southern part of this Cronulla area. And this is spectacular as well. Lots of similar fish, but the habitat's nice. And this is a really sheltered area. So really good if the weather's, not quite right. And it's just really accessible. You can park here, walk down, and a lot of people come and swim here too. So you don't, sometimes at Bundeena, you feel a little bit isolated if you're the only person in the water. It's good to snorkel with other people, but you can't always, of course, if there's no one around and you still want to go. Sometimes it feels a bit spooky if it's a bit murky, but here there's always people swimming and it's just much more pleasant. You're not really worrying about sharks or anything. So there's two spots, there's sort of this area here or this area here. And you could go further, but these are the spots that I checked out. So in the sandy area, you get lots of whiting. There's this big seagrass area, this dark spot here, lots of seagrass, and you'll see lots of fish there. So gold-spotted sweetlip, baitfish, red morwongs again, lots of them in the grass, schools of goatfish, pygmy leather jackets. Now, I actually saw a couple of these either having a courtship dance where they would kind of look at each other and tilting, and then they'd attack each other. So I don't know whether they were attacking each other or whether it was courtship, but it was very interesting behaviour. It's in one of the shorts I've got. Lots of senator wrasse, get really good footage of them here. They're quite a spectacular fish. Under the ledges, there's little rock ledges in here that you can kind of poke your camera in. You get Sydney cardinal fish, these red ones with black and white stripes. You'll only really see them underneath rocks and in dark spots, so you've got to have a look. And I think these are juvenile bullseye fish, so you get lots of them as well. Stingarees, Australian goatfish. There's lots of different types of goatfish in this area that I found. You got your sergeant majors, I think it's a scissortail with stripy fish. Fan belly leather jackets, quite a few in this area here. This is another goatfish that's a blue, I think it's a blue-lined goatfish. It's got little blue streaks near its eye, and you can get these really vibrant red ones. And the same species, you also get pale ones as well. Smooth flute mouth, the big long snake-looking things, more leather jackets. Plenty of, I've seen heaps of these old wife fish in big schools under the rocks here. Luderick, this is the same goatfish, but it's just like a different colour. So they have a lot of colour variation within the same species. And some pomfret, or pomfret, I think they call them, big schools of them. Eastern hula fish, they're like a wrasse, but they're small and thin, black with yellowy red stripes on them. And blue groper as well. I saw a blue groper that was following me around for a while over here, actually. So yeah, keep an eye out for them. I'm not sure what this is, but you'll see, there's plenty of fish that you may not be able to identify. Some big smooth rays. I got up very close to a big smooth ray. And, they can be, there was one at Oak Park, which was the size of me pretty much. They can be really big. So just make sure when you get close to them, give yourself an arm's length with your camera. And think about how long their tail is, and they can whip their tail around. So just be careful and gentle and avoid that stinger if you're going to get film of them. Yeah, Gunther's wrasse and some damselfish. So lots of fish in this area. Very calm. Lots of people here. Great spot if you're a beginner to have a snorkel. Oak Park, this is more of a, I think, an advanced snorkeling area because it's very exposed to the ocean and it gets very deep, but it's spectacular. So this whole area here is like a big boulder field. These big, I think, sandstone boulders, um, and you get lots of sea urchins and yeah, it's amazing habitat. So this massive area here. I actually went down here, and there's another old fella snorkeling, but he actually had a not quite snorkeling. He had a compressed flotation device unit which fed down air to him. We could go. He could dive down to 12 meters like a scuba diver. So he was going out in the real deep stuff. So if you're a diver, this would be a great spot too. So you see stripies, mado fish. That's a female herring kale. Goatfish, the pomfrets in massive schools. Crimson band wrasse. This is the really big smooth stingray that I saw, and that was probably the size of me. That was really big. So I came up to it in the sand, and then it spooked, and then just did a big banked turn and just glided around in a circle. Spectacular. There's a blue groper out there that you'll probably find. This one's very curious because I think some of the divers sometimes find shells with snails in them. They crush it up and they actually feed the groper. So it's probably best you don't do that, but it's yeah, the divers love the big blue gropers. You'll see moon wrasse. These are the sea urchins you'll find under ledges. You'll see sea urchins everywhere, so just be careful not to step on one or get hit by one. I've heard they're quite painful. Yeah, you get some white band damselfish, I think they're called, in this area. So this was spectacular. If you're lucky, you might see a eagle ray. So I think this is a southern eagle ray. Yeah, it came right up to me and sort of like a manta ray. It did a big bank turn. So very spectacular. You see these white-eared damselfish. If you dive down deep, I probably dove about 8 or 9 meters, and that's sort of, I can do my equalization, but I get a bit sore. I'm not used to diving that deep, but I did see this, what I think is a scorpion fish, sitting in the rocks. You'll also see some spectacular sponges, so big orange sponges on the ledges. You do see, I didn't see it there when I was there, but cuttlefish is one of the big attractions here. So if you're lucky, you might see a cuttlefish. So keep an eye out for them. You'll see bullseye fish in the dark ledges, some drummer, white band damsels, and the juvenile ones. I think you get these blue, purple-like stripes on them, which is quite spectacular. Leather jackets, more goatfish. So lots of fish there, but it really is quite a spectacular, big, deep dive area. So the other thing to do is if you're going out deep, try to dive if you've got one, have a flotation device with a flag on it that's tethered to you, just so boats know that there's someone diving, because boats, you can see there's a boat trail here, but boats come close here. So when I went out, I didn't have one, but the guy who had that compressed air device had a flag on his, so I dove near him when I went out deep, and that way boats knew that there were divers there, and it means you can stay safe. So just do be careful about boats in that area. Finally, I'll look at the bars, and this is if you're a real beginner and you're not big on open water. This is a great place to start. So in here is Gunamatta, and I'll also show you the Silver Beach bars, which are at a different location. But Gunamatta Bay, it's a very popular swimming area. There's a pavilion here. You get lots of people on this pontoon jumping into the water doing backflips and summies. So lots of fun, lots of people. And yeah, it's quite safe, so you can swim out and all along the fence here. And it goes down about 4 or 5 meters, I think. It's pretty deep. All along the netting, you'll have fish and seaweed. So I'll show you some of that. So you'll see stingrays. So just be careful where you step. There are a few stingrays in there. This is along the netting. You get some big fan belly leather jackets. There's some really big ones in there. Yellowfin brim, crested morlong. I saw one in there. This is again in and out of the netting. You'll see lots of fish. So toadfish, eastern hula fish, porcupine fish. That's the sort of growth you get on the nets. Now, I didn't see any, unfortunately, but apparently if you're there at the right season, or if you look carefully enough, there are a lot of seahorses living in this area. So along the nets, apparently the seahorses love living near the nets. So just keep an eye out for them. You might be lucky to find one. Near the pontoons, you get a bit more fish near the sort of the piles that go into the ground. Get the diamond fish, goatfish schools. And this is the other spot that the water quality is not the best here. So sometimes if it's low tide, it'll probably feel a bit dirty and might smell a bit. So if you want to not get sick from the water, I'd suggest you still want to be within a net. Try Silver Beach instead, which is a bit further north from Cronulla. It's near Kurnell. But just look up Silver Beach and you'll find it. And this one's fun. My uncle lives near here. He showed me this spot. And you'll see lots of little fish in there. It's great for doing swimming laps. The water's much cleaner. You get pomfrey fish, mado, sergeant majors, lots of interesting coral on the rocks. Not coral, sorry, seaweed, sea snails, colourful seaweed, lots of browns and reds and greens. Silver bitty fish, pygmy leather jackets. You're more of this, pink, blue, green seaweed. It's quite spectacular. Sponges, you'll see a lot of sponges along these rock walls. And even, I think it's a tube worm. These little frilly things, if you get close to them, they retreat inside. So that's kind of cool to see. So yeah, these netted areas are great if you're a beginner and you're still getting used to the feeling of being in open water and, worrying about sharks, which really isn't something to worry about. But if you're still getting used to open water, give these a go. Okay, so overall rating for Port Hacking, which is that whole area near Cronulla, Bundeena, I'd say is it beginner friendly? I'll give it 3 out of 5 stars. Some of the spots like Oak Park are very much advanced, deep water, a lot of moving water, needs good conditions. But then you got the bars, which are very much beginner friendly. So it's a mix. Weather resilience, 3 out of 5 stars. It's pretty good with rain, but again, the swell really does impact your water visibility, and not just the visibility, but your safety, because the swell, if you get a bit of swell, some areas you get a surge, and you get caught in the surge, you can get pushed up onto the rocks and cut with oysters and things like that. So do be careful with the surge when there's waves around. Water visibility is 4 out of 5. It's really, because it's close to the ocean, you often get that ocean water very clear. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. Sometimes when it's been a lot of rain, possibly, or you get a bit of wind or waves, it can churn things up a little bit, but water visibility is generally very good. The wildlife variety is actually, it's quite good. In Sydney, it's fantastic. You see most of the things you can see, but got to compare this with all the places, things like the Great Barrier Reef and Queensland places, Western Australia. That's much better. So 2 out of 5, still get plenty of variety. Accessibility, 3 stars. You do have to take a ferry over and a bit of walk for the Bundeena area, but there's other places like Oak Park and Salmon Hall, which you can park right next to it. Safety, 3 out of 5. So there's the baths are really safe, but then places like Oak Park, you got to be careful because there are boats that come past, and boats are a huge danger to snorkelers. So you really got to be careful. Have your flag pointing up in the water. Cool. So that's all for my review on Port Hacking. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you get in the water and can see some of the wildlife, some of God's creation in the water. And yeah, I'll see you next time for the next video. Hope to see you in the water.